I'm so excited. I love this movie.
Ryan, it's about to start.
Sorry.
Hello, and welcome to the last episode of The Real. I'm your host, Meredith.
And I'm Ryan.
And as I said, this is the fifth and last episode of our podcast, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, but it's been a good time for sure.
Yeah, it's been fun just getting recommendations. I feel like I've learned a lot about Mr. Binder through these recommendations.
Yeah, definitely.
But overall, it's been a ton of fun, and I've enjoyed the movies that we watched, and that's what this was about.
Same.
Finding new movies.
If you don't know what this podcast is about, basically every episode we ask our teacher, Mr. Binder, for a movie recommendation. The two of us go and watch it, and then we come back and we share our thoughts. This week we asked for a animated movie, and we were given a partially animated movie, Who Framed Roger Rabbit from 1988.
Which is a classic. A ton of people have seen this movie.
For sure, yeah.
I saw it such a long time ago that I was like, this will be a nice refresher to like think critically about it.
Yeah.
Because Mr. Binder kind of had a hard time coming up with an animated movie we hadn't seen.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this did serve kind of as a nice refresher. I think that this movie, because it's from 1988, the animation is like really cool. I grew up with like Looney Tunes, Tom and Jerry, stuff like that. So it's a great like nostalgia aspect of it. Like watching it back, I was like, oh, like I recognize these characters and stuff.
Well, if you don't know what this movie is about, here's the description. Down on his luck, Private Eye Eddie Valiant gets hired by cartoon producer R.K. Maroon to investigate an adultery scandal involving Jessica Rabbit, the sultry wife of Maroon's biggest star, Roger Rabbit. But when Marvin Acme, Jessica's alleged paramour and the owner of Toontown, is found murdered, the villainous Judge Doom vows to catch and destroy Roger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is overall just a really fun movie. There's so many cartoon aspects, even though it's a live action film. There's just like a bunch of cartoon violence, like big hammers and
like
stuff.
Slapstick Tom and Jerry type stuff. You know, it's great.
Yeah, just like big hammers and like other stuff. It's a lot of fun to watch. I just want to talk about the animation a bit because this, like, for 1988, I thought it looked really cool. And like they were purposely going for that super cartoony look. But just thinking about like how they filmed it in 1988 versus like now CGI and stuff that they do, like Marvel movies that are super CGI, they're all done on green screen sets, and like some characters are CGI, so they have to like do different things for those. This was like the precursor to all of those movies, how they did like talking to an animated character, but there's nothing there, so you just like, I don't know. I've always loved movies like that, and like looking at how CGI has advanced from then to now is so incredible because nowadays they do like super realistic characters, fully CGI, and it's just incredible to see.
I feel like a lot of times with movies, simple is better.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the animation is simple because it was done in the 80s, but at the same time, it was blended with the live action aspects so well, and it just looked so good throughout the entire thing.
Yeah, and even like some of the shadowing and stuff was incredible. Like such fine detail.
A lot of stuff that you don't really notice unless you like really look at a shot, but it's still, I mean, it looks fantastic throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, it does. This is just such a fun visual film. Just watching all the colors and different animation styles and stuff come together. It's such a fun film to watch. But I don't know, Ryan, do you want to get into the plot a little bit?
Yeah, so basically the movie is about this private investigator named Eddie Valiant. He gets hired by a movie producer to investigate basically a cheating scandal between this character Roger Rabbit, who is a cartoon, and his wife Jessica Rabbit. And basically
who is also a cartoon.
Who is also a cartoon, yeah. And basically it's found out that Jessica Rabbit is cheating on him with whatever the guy's name was. And basically what happens is Eddie Valiant, he takes pictures of them like playing patty cake.
Yeah,
it was,
they were literally,
and that's like the cheating going on.
The whole gag is that they're playing patty cake.
It's really funny. But basically he takes pictures and these pictures get leaked. And the man that Jessica Rabbit was cheating on Roger with,
His name is Acme, by the way.
Acme, ends up being murdered. And so this guy named Judge Doom pins it on Roger.
Yeah, because they saw, like, Roger sees the pictures and he immediately goes crazy. He smashes out of a window, like in cartoons where they leave the hole in the wall of, like, the super realistic.
Yeah.
But they did that with curtains and the glass window. Like, I laughed at that. I thought it was super funny because that's been one of my favorite, like, cartoon things as a kid. I was like, oh, that's so funny. Anyway, yeah, so Eddie Valiant is like, I don't want to do this case. I don't work for cartoons, because they have this whole, like, their society is like live action people, but they also coexist with cartoons. And so he was like, I don't want to do cartoons. And it's because a cartoon killed his brother. He and his brother worked together as private investigators, and a cartoon ended up killing his brother by pushing a piano onto him. And so he, like, swore off working for cartoons. But then he goes back to his house, and Roger's asleep in his bed. He, like, pulls the bed down, and you kind of see the blanket move a bit. And then Eddie Valiant, like, lays down, and the camera pans over, and Roger's just asleep in the bed, and they both scream at each other. Man. It's just, like, comedy through cartoons. Like, it's typical cartoons, but it's still really funny. Yeah. And Roger basically begs Eddie to, like, help him, because if not, he's going to be, he knows, executed by Judge Doom, who has created this potion that you can kill cartoons with. Who is
played by Christopher Lloyd.
Oh my gosh, I love Christopher
He's so
Lloyd.
Great. Oh my god.
Like, I enjoyed his character, even though you're not supposed to, just because it's Christopher Lloyd.
Like I think I've said in several of these episodes already, Back to the Future is my favorite movie, and he's my favorite actor from those movies. It's just, he's great.
Yeah, he's too good.
Yeah, but basically, Eddie Valiant, he at first he doesn't want to help Roger out, but eventually he gives in from guilt, because, like, you know, he's the one that took the pictures. He's the one that basically made it look like Roger killed this guy, even though he didn't. And so the rest of the movie then is Eddie trying to help Roger, like, stay away from, like, the judge's police people, which are like
the weasels.
There
was just like 4 weasels. They're all brightly dressed, and, like, they were funny too, because they just laughed the whole time. But yeah, so Eddie agrees reluctantly, and he takes Roger to a bar that has, like, a speakeasy in the back, and they plan to hide him there. But Roger, being Roger, goes out and starts performing for the people at the bar, and everyone's laughing. But then the police come, and Judge Doom comes with his weasels, and they're like, Roger was here, we know it. Yeah. And so they flee again, and they go, I think, next to a movie theater, and they're just hiding at the movie theater. Yeah. And then Eddie has this friend Dolores who works at the bar, and it's obvious that there's a bit of romance between Eddie and Dolores, because she comes to the movie theater and they almost kiss, but Roger interrupts it because he's like, oh, you guys are so cute. But yeah, so he interrupts that, and Dolores tells Eddie that there's this corporation called Cloverleaf that's been buying out the buses, and I think it was planning to buy out Maroon's company as well. And so Eddie starts to put together the pieces of, like, whoever owns Cloverleaf is probably the person who killed Maroon, because is the person who killed Acme, because they're trying to take all of these properties for themselves. So Eddie then goes to Maroon, and he's trying to interrogate him. He's trying to find out, like, who's buying these corporations. And Maroon gets shot through a window. And so Eddie runs to the window, and he sees Jessica Rabbit running away. And Roger also, like, Jessica takes Roger, who was standing outside on guard, and takes him into Toontown, which is, like, the cartoon sector of Hollywood. Yeah.
It's basically the entirety of Toontown is, like, animated, and that's where all, like, the cartoons live.
It's bright and musical.
Yeah. And Eddie like follows them in, and it's a really funny switch, because it goes from live action world with cartoon characters on it to a cartoon world with a live action character in it.
Yeah,
It's really
watching him just like
Yeah.
stumble around.
yeah.
My favorite gag from this movie is where he like walks out of an elevator and he like looks down and he realizes that there's no floor under him.
And then he just
Like
falls out of a
the
size
gravity
skyscraper.
gag.
Yeah.
The gravity gag from cartoons is
I love
always one of
those.
my favorites. So yeah, they do that. I thought that was hilarious. Yeah, so Eddie eventually finds Jessica and she says that Judge Doom killed Acme and Maroon because he wants these properties. He wants to get super rich and he wants to take out all of Toontown because he hates Toontown. And so they go to the Acme factory, which is like full of props and gags from different cartoons. And they find Judge Doom there. And he basically reveals that he has this huge machine that'll destroy all of Toontown if he drives through it because it's full of that liquid that
they called it dip. It was
Yeah.
like it was just this like greenish liquid.
it was like
it
an
was-
acid.
Yeah, it was like the only way that you could kill a cartoon was like
Mhm.
putting them in this liquid.
Yeah, so he wants to drive it around and just spill it all over Toontown so he can build a freeway
Yeah.
through Hollywood, whatever.
Really
Yeah.
weird plan.
Yeah, it's I
It's
mean
just
I
the
mean I can
strangest
see how you
plan.
would make money from it, but also like
really
man,
come on, man.
you're gonna kill an entire sector of a town to make a
for
freeway.
a road.
That's terrible. Yeah, so Judge Doom ties up Jessica and Roger and he's like dangling them over the thing and Eddie's trying to fight him. They're getting a couple good like cartoon gags
Yeah.
in, like the wham sounds and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And Eddie then realizes like, oh, I can't beat him hand to hand. So he starts singing.
Yeah.
And he's like dancing around. All the Weasel gang is laughing at him and he's just dancing around, distracting them.
And the Weasel gang end up dying of laughter listening to him singing.
Yeah, I think he kicks one of them into the vat of like
Yeah.
dip, but the rest of them just like fall to the ground.
Like,
And
like
die
their
of
spirit
laughter.
like flies out of them.
Yeah. And then Eddie keeps fighting Judge Doom. And then Judge Doom gets like killed by a steamroller.
Yeah.
Or it rolls over him and it's
Yeah,
like
a
you just hear
steamroller,
the bones going. Oh, I didn't
And
like
you're like
that
you're like,
part.
oh no, he's dead. But if
And
you
then
if you remember correctly, I said toons can only be killed by the dip. It's
Yeah.
revealed Judge Doom is a toon,
Yeah.
which is
He
really
like
weird.
stands up and he's like a flat Stanley
Yeah.
character.
And then he walks over to like a helium like thing and he blows himself back up.
It was like
It's
so it turns out Doom's just a toon living in this like rubber suit of a
Yeah.
human and it gross. It's so gross. Yeah, and then he reveals that he killed Eddie's brother
Yeah.
and that he's going to destroy all of Toontown. And Eddie like knocks over the giant machine and it spills the dip everywhere and Doom just like melts. It's sort of like the scene from Wizard of Oz where the witch melts because he's like, I'm melting,
Yeah.
I'm melting. And then he just dissolves into gross. It's just gross.
Just a puddle. It's
It's
kind of
just, like,
nasty.
Yellow puddle. And
Yeah.
I think they leave like part of the skin mask.
Yeah, it's
ugh.
really.
It was just like,
Ugh.
this is a kid's movie, huh? Really good kids movie.
Is it a kids movie? I don't know.
They said a profanity at one point, so
Yeah.
I don't. It might be like PG-13.
Yeah, something like that.
But I know like kids everywhere have watched
For
this
sure.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the empty machine, like the machine that was full of dip, like ends up crashing through the wall, and it almost kills Jessica and Roger, but Eddie like cuts them down in
Yeah.
time. It crashes through the wall and like opens up Toontown to the real world. I'm
Yeah.
saying that in quotations. And a bunch of cartoon characters, Mickey and Minnie, Dumbo, like a bunch of like Goofy, and then a bunch of
Yeah.
Looney Tunes characters all come through, and they're like happy because they realize like,
At
oh,
first-
we're not gonna die.
At first in this scene, like the machine like rolled through the wall, and I was like, "Oh no, it's still gonna go destroy Toontown." But then it gets hit by a train and taken off
Oh
screen.
yeah.
I
I
was
forgot
like,
it
"What?"
got hit by the train.
All right then.
But yeah, so the rest of like the police come in and a bunch of Toon characters come in and they're like, the day's saved, yay. And it's a bunch of Looney Tunes characters, but it's also Disney characters. And I
Yeah.
think this was like the first time on screen that those two had been like together.
Yeah.
I was told that by someone.
It's probably true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then Eddie, oh, we forgot to talk about the will. Because
Oh, yeah.
a big thing, like a big important piece of this movie, which we forgot to talk about, was the
Shows
will.
how important it is, huh?
Yeah, Acme's will was super important because they needed it. He was planning to give Toontown back to the Toons. Originally,
Yeah,
it was
when
like
he
owned
died.
by Hollywood or
Yeah.
whatever. So in his will, he was going to give Toontown back to the Toons, but the will went missing after he died. And Roger at some point in the movie like pulled up a piece of paper that he had like scribbled a love letter to Jessica on, and they didn't realize at first like what it was. They just thought it was a scrap piece of paper, so he tucked it in his pocket. And at the end, Eddie realizes that Acme had used disappearing ink on it, and so the ink reappears and they find the will.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, the day is saved and like the Toons own Toontown
Yep.
again and everything's happy. And so yeah, like everyone's happy at the end except for Doom.
Because he's dead.
Yeah,
But
he's dead. But everyone else sort of gets a happy ending,
Yeah.
and then they walk off into Toontown. The
Yeah.
sun is like dancing. Everyone's kind of happy. And then Porky the Pig comes up and he's like, "That's all, folks. That's kind of catchy." And so, the
Yeah.
Porky the Pig
Yeah.
line, "That's all, folks." And then Tinkerbell flies in and does her
Yeah.
wand thing, and like that's where the movie ends.
Yeah.
And I thought, it's just it's so good to go back and watch that. Like, I'm about to turn 18, so I went back and watched it, and that just felt like this was my childhood.
Yeah.
Like all of these characters.
It's a nice like feel good type of movie, you know?
Yeah, all of these characters, all of these gags were just like, oh, this is what my childhood
Yeah.
was. So it was super fun to go back and watch.
Yeah. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I don't know. I
Yeah.
just think, what would you rate this movie?
I would give it an 8 out of 10, I think.
Me too. I think just the nostalgia aspect of it was so good that and just like the production of it, the story was kind of like, oh, like
I mean,
kind of predictable.
It's a movie with cartoons. I mean, you can't
Yeah.
really expect much in the way of plot, but for the plot that they had, it was great. It was really interesting.
Yeah.
I love movies that take place in this like sort of era. I don't know what era this was, like
I think
40s
it
or
was
something.
the 40s.
Yeah, I love like 40s type movies. They're like really interesting for me.
Mm-hmm.
And the character of Valiant, like I just loved him as a character. He was really entertaining the entire time.
Yeah.
And just like the technical aspects of this movie too, with all the effects and the way that they blended the animation in with the real world, it was just masterfully done the entire time. I thought it was a great movie.
Yeah, I agree. I would probably give it an 8 out of 10 too, just for all of the technical stuff and nostalgia, everything. It was just fun to get to see some of my like childhood characters. And I really love the character of Roger Rabbit. I just think he's so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily have that much more to say about this film. But I would like to talk just a bit about the last 5 weeks because we've done 5 films at this point.
Yeah.
Would you like to tell us which one was your favorite, Ryan, out of the 5 that we watched?
I think my favorite film that we watched would have to be Top Secret, the first film that we watched.
Yeah.
Something about it was just so great to me, but yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with Top Secret too, just because it was so funny.
Yeah.
And also I love that era of Germany, like German history, the GDR era was so interesting. It is interesting to me. So getting to see that was great. And I definitely want to watch that with our friends because that is such a fun movie. I would definitely say that was my favorite. What would your second favorite? How would you rate these out of 5?
What? Like my top
rank
5
them.
list?
Rank
Okay,
them.
so number 1, Top Secret.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, I think number 2 I'm gonna say is Who Framed Roger Rabbit,
Mm-hmm.
and then 3 is this is so difficult. 3 I'm gonna give to The Bridge on the River Kwai, and then it's Aliens, and then 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah. Okay. I can get behind that. I think mine would be definitely Top Secret at number 1. Bridge on the River Kwai is number 2.
Okay.
2001: A Space Odyssey is number 3
Oh,
because
see.
the portion that had plot was very interesting to me.
They could have just taken that part out and made it its own thing. But
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that, but the portion that did
Yeah.
have plot was very interesting
Yeah.
to me. Then I would say Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and then Aliens. I
Yeah.
I loved Aliens, but
Yeah.
out of the 5 fantastic movies we watched, I
Yeah.
think it was the one where I was not bored, but just like, I don't know.
This
Yeah.
has been a great past few weeks. I've had a lot of fun doing this. We've like pre-filmed all of these before
Mhm.
releasing them, so I don't really know if it's been doing well, if people have been listening, but I mean, it's great.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of fun doing this for sure.
Yeah, I've had any excuse to watch movies for me is
Yeah,
is a
definitely.
great opportunity. So getting to do this with Ryan, who is
Yeah.
a great friend of mine.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah,
It's been a lot of fun. And thank you to Mr. Binder for all of the awesome movie recommendations.
Absolutely.
This has
Thank
been
you.
a lot of
Yeah.
fun. We wouldn't have been able to do it without you. So thank you, Mr. Binder. And thank you to all of the listeners for supporting the show. If you're listening to this right now, it means that you've stuck through all 5
Yeah.
episodes. God bless you. Because I'm sure a few portions of these episodes have been a bit excruciating to listen to.
As excruciating as it was to watch 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh man, are we that boring? Man, no, I'm kidding. I'm
I
kidding.
hope not.
But yeah, this has been a ton of fun. Ryan and I have been wanting to do a podcast forever,
Yeah.
and we finally got to
yeah,
do
we
it.
finally got to.
Yeah. Would you want to like keep on doing this?
Honestly, yeah, I would be down to do that. So
Yeah.
maybe in the future we'll keep doing this
Mhm.
somewhere. But
Yeah.
yeah.
For now, I think this has been The Real,
Yeah.
and I'm Meredith.
And I'm Ryan.
And thank you so much for listening to our podcast.
It means a whole lot.
Yeah.
Really, it does.
Thank you very much. We'll see you guys sometime in the future.
Hope you enjoyed
hopefully.
it. And that's going to be it for us.
Yep.
So, see ya.
Bye.